Okay, sorry about that with the faulty pen. The cool thing is, you know, I like to show you sometimes when I make mistakes. So this blobbed a little bit. I mean, I don't really care that much, but if I didn't, you know, if I was working on a piece of art that I really cared deeply about, or, you know, that I wanted to give, whatever, then this could easily be remedied with a little bit more black gesso on my paintbrush, and I could thin those lines back out and just fix whatever little mistakes that I made. So here I have a new paint pen, and hopefully it will do the job a little bit better. But I'm just going to sort of choose my images and begin to doodle around them, giving little outlines or, you know, different little accents. Okay, maybe this one would go this way, and maybe then I could do some dots around there. Here I want to give a little bit of whites to the eyes. I think that really kind of perks up her face a little bit. And then I can go in right on that painted background and maybe give a couple more rings or some other, again, just little doodles and accents, dots. Dots are always great. Maybe go on to the black. And just continue on like that. You get the idea. I'm just going to sometimes this paint pen will sputter a little bit. I don't mind that. I kind of think it looks cool, especially for this technique. But if you don't want that to happen, then just go a little more gingerly and always go definitely in one direction. But you might want to lift up on your pen just a little bit. It's when you give a little extra pressure sometimes that happens. Not that I was pushing hard, but you know what I mean. Just be really light-handed if you don't want that to happen. And you can fill in as much or as little as you want. You could give, you know, some other little doodles sort of on your own, stars, whatever. You get the idea. But then, well, I'm going to go over here and do more on this side. And I'm not, you know, being super careful. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be loose and sort of spontaneous. Okay, so that'll be all I'll do for now. Of course, I see some other little areas that I'd like to play with and fill in and sort of okay, you could also take some other stamps now at this point, and as long as your base is dry, you can. Now, I don't know, this stamp that I chose is a definition of infinite. I'm not actually sure if it will fit all the way in there, so what I want to do, I'm thinking that it won't now. I thought that I made it big enough, but I didn't, so what I'll do is I will get a little post-it note, and I'm actually going to mask that off just so that it'll stay within that area. I don't care if the whole thing shows or not. And I'm just gonna plop that down in there. And then I also have this Dreamer stamp. I'm thinking that will fit in there. And if I want, I can hit that with my heat tool just to make sure the ink is nice and dry. I don't want it smearing around now. And I have another little accent stamp. This is actually called the Sprinkle Cube, and it has some really fun, just little dots and stars and fun little doodads. So I think I'm gonna take and stamp some of these into some of these spaces that I created. And then of course you can always take like your Micron pen or your Pitt pen and, you know, do a little, now bringing some of the black into, you've taken white and put it into your black areas. You can take some black and put it into your colored areas. And again, this just sort of creates a little bit of cohesiveness. That one's a little too fine. I want one a little bit thicker. Okay, so you get the idea. So I'm like reverse doodling basically. And then finally, you know, I can keep going and playing and putting things into the little spaces that I've created. I see something up here that I want to sort of pull in some of the black lines into that space, and so on and so forth. I could even maybe do another ring around my moon over here, or a couple rings in black. But finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this ink splatter stamp. Stars would be fun too, but I'm going to take my white gesso or my white acrylic paint, and I am going to, I have some white gesso here. I'm going to spread a little bit out onto my palette or onto any slick flat surface. You could always put it on like a piece of glass, but I'm gonna just spread a little bit of the white gesso out so that I can, and actually, you know what, I'll just do it right here so you can kind of see. Normally I use my red rubber palette, but it's actually all covered up over here. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of this white gesso, if I can ever get it to come out. Well, it's really stuck up in there. Okay, so I got some white gesso out there. I'm just gonna spread it around on this little piece of mat board because I only need a little bit, okay? And I am going to make a mess. But I'm really good at that. I'm actually gonna mask this off with some Post-it notes because I don't want it to go up onto here, although it wouldn't be the end of the world if it did. And I'm going to take this ink splatter stamp, and like I said, any kind of backgroundy stamp that you have will be great, although this is one of my favorites. And stamping with gesso is really nice because it gives you a nice opaque white. Okay, you just need to make sure that you're stamping it out on kind of a thin surface. I love my red rubber palette for this, but anyway. Okay, so then I'm just going to put a few random paint splatters around there. One up here. over there. Okay. And for these smaller areas, if I wanted to do some of that over here, let me wipe this up a little bit. I made a good mess. If I wanted to do some areas over here, obviously I could just use my white paint pen and do some little dots, or I could also use my sprinkles cube and just stamp in some of those spaces. But I like the way that it kind of looks like stars and sort of brings everything together. Pull these off. Go ahead and do a few over here. You know, if you don't like something that you did, or you think it's a little too much, like here, I feel like it's just too separated, so I can always go in and pull that right out with my baby wipe. So, you know, maybe I will just take that same ink splatter stamp, because I can just do that. And if it goes into an area that I don't want it to go into, then I'll just remove it with my baby wipe. All right, so now, you know, the kind of cool thing is over here, if I wanted to do some writing and some actual art journaling, I could do that. But all in all, I have my cover done and my flaps done. And of course, once all that is good and dry and I feel happy with it, I can now go ahead and turn it over and do my inside pages. So, but there you have it, the front and back cover of my Celestial journal. Thanks so much, and sprinkle moon dust, spread magic. That's a wrap.